To get more updates, tips and instructions on how to do registrations, tasks, chores and have fun in Zambia, click on the subscribe button below and subscribe to this channel.
In previous months, many have complained of poor network on major network providers in Zambia. Why is it that many are experiencing bad connectivity not only on one, but almost all networks? This video will try to answer that question. The answer that many are given to this question is load shedding. As outlined by the Global System for Mobile Communication Association of Zambia, GSMAZ, they stated on July 10, 2024 that over 3,500 towers connected to the national grid have been affected by extended load shedding. The extended load shedding hours have compromised the provision of quality service as backup power now requires constant refueling and more frequent servicing cycles. That statement was very true and accurate. But another reason not usually mentioned is collocation. Collocation has also partially contributed to having poor network on all networks simultaneously. What is tower collocation and how does it contribute to poor network during load shedding? To understand this, we have to go back into history about 10 years ago. So before 2014, major service providers like MTN, Airtel and Zambia built and maintained their own towers. But somewhere in 2014, a company called IHS Towers bought the towers from MTN and Airtel. They started renting out tower space to any service provider. Zambia followed suit somewhere in 2018 and passed on management of their towers to a Zambian company called Infratel. This was a good move. It meant that instead of MTN, Airtel and Zambia concentrating on building towers and fixing things like generators and batteries for towers, they could instead focus their energy on their core business, which includes making sure that customers have fast internet, new technologies, and value-added services. It also meant that instead of MTN, Airtel or Zambia building towers next to each other, IHS or Infratel could just build one tower in an area and MTN, Airtel, Zambia or any other service provider would rent space on that single tower. This also meant that if a new mobile service provider wanted to come into the Zambian market, they did not have to build towers but would also just rent from a tower company like IHS or Infratel. This was actually a brilliant way of utilizing and sharing resources. It is also a model used by other developed countries like American Towers in the USA and Indus Towers in India. Fast forward 2024. As the power deficit was starting in 2024, all service providers were collocating or sharing tower spaces on towers owned by either IHS or Infratel. This means there are situations where all three major mobile service providers are co-locate on a single tower in an area. This is where it gets interesting. When there is ZESCO power failure, a site is usually powered by batteries. When batteries discharge, there are usually diesel generators that run to power a site. In a situation where the diesel generator runs out of fuel or develops a fault, all equipment for mobile service providers hosted on that tower will go off. This means there will be no service in that area for service providers hosted on that tower. If that site hosts all network providers that serve an area, it means that area will experience very poor network. This partially explains why at times you have poor network on all service providers. It could mean all the service providers that you have subscribed to are collocated within a single tower, and that tower has no power. The long-term solution to poor network issues would include investing in alternative power sources such as solar. Interestingly, during the time the water levels are at their lowest for hydroelectric power generation, it is also the same time solar power is at its peak in Zambia. Having an option for solar power, apart from national grid and generators, may contribute to better service for collocated towers. Hope this was informative.